Now, this is heavy duty. I mean, when it comes to the topic of the next discussion, it really is some heavy weight that we will do, some lifting probably, because you might understand and be aware of the fact that HDV registration don't go quite as well as we would like them to. So the challenge is how do we get more electric heavy-duty cars, trucks? How do we make sure that this network is growing? The numbers are not as good, but I'm sure Julia will mention them. Julia Hildermeyer provides research and policy analysis as an electromobility and transport expert with Regulatory Assistance Project. Great to have you, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank you. Originally from Germany, but based in Brussels for the last 10 years. I know that sustainability has always been at your heart. Why?
Because I don't think we can afford to delay decarbonizing transport as much as possible. We just don't have the time. So
right.
Walk, cycle, and electrify those vehicles.
I love that plan. You own a bike in Brussels? You use that a lot?
Of course, every day.
Okay, I'm glad that Brussels is bike-friendly. Julia, here are you and your fellow panelists. Great to have you. You can tell everybody who these people are.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. And welcome to this afternoon panel on 100% heavy-duty electrification. Now, switching from bikes to the heavy-duty electrification. I have a wonderful panel with me today. I'll call them up all at once and introduce those speakers so we can have a lot of time for our discussion. First, with me, I have Klaus Wallenstein, who is the Managing Director of MAN Truck and Bus in Poland. Next.
Thank you.
I have Sita Holzlach, who's the Europe Director of CalStart. Hello, Sita. And with me also, Caroline Müller, who is a manager of public funding and tenders at Nowej, the National Agency for Charging Infrastructure in Germany. Welcome, you three. Great to have you here. We're going to kick off this discussion right away with really discussing how we're going to get to the goal of 100% registrations of electric heavy-duty vehicles in Europe and in the countries you're active in. My first question goes to Sita. You're working a lot in an initiative called the Global Memorandum of Understanding for electric or decarbonization of heavy-duty vehicles. And I want to know from you, what is exactly the Global MOU? What is its goals and how we're going to achieve those?
Yes, I love to talk about the Global MOU. And by the way, I really like the gender diversity in this panel. So the Global MOU is an initiative that started at COP26, and the main ambition is to align global targets, basically. So there's 38 countries that have signed an ambition of 30% new sales by 2030 and 100% new sales by 2040. This is a very ambitious target, but it's reachable. So these 38 countries have signed this ambition, and we work with them to make sure that they put in place the needed policies to make true to this ambition. And as we all know, we cannot do that alone. We are part of a wider ecosystem. So there's 180 companies and NGOs that have endorsed, including RAP, that have endorsed this initiative and say basically we will support the countries in doing this. And I think that's where it's really important to state like what is needed to reach this target. It's really the close collaboration because it's a systems change that we're working on. So I hope that kind of underscores what we're trying to do with the Global MOU.
Thank you. That gives us a good picture. And yes, for full disclosure, RAP is a knowledge partner to the Global MOU, where we share sort of what we learn on electric trucks meeting power grids and how we're going to sort out that challenge. We can discuss that later if there's interest and time. Let me move to Klaus then. You're obviously presenting an important manufacturer, so we're really keen to hear your perspective. How are you going to get to 100% registrations of electric heavy duty, and what's your strategy?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, it's exactly very important that we discuss that together, because it's of course not only on the manufacturer side to make that happen. But let me explain a little bit where we are or what we are preparing. First of all, let's say from a manufacturer point of view, so portfolio readiness, we made now sure in the last couple of years to have really availability of the most important transport solutions then. That means we have now a portfolio from 12 to 42 ton available, which is then gives you all possibilities to go in the long haul. So it's up to 600 kilometer range, for example. And with a 12-ton truck, of course, this is then best solution for distribution in the cities and around the cities. Also for the looking at the buses, public transport is a very important one as well. So city buses, they're also produced, by the way, here in Poland, which makes us especially proud. So we have 1,000 buses already sold, pure electric BEV buses with a zero emission. They're running here in Polish cities, but in a lot of cities in Europe as well. With that big success on that side, we see already how the transition goes. So when we look at this bus business case, for example, there's a depot charging. So we're charging overnight and having then a range available of, let's say, 250, 300, 350 kilometers. Depends on temperature, depends on topographic situation. So that we then can run the full day, full operation one day, charging again overnight. Next day we start again the cycle. So this is already available, but we talk about the main target of 2030, which is minus 45%. And when we look at the truck market in Europe and the bus market, then of course we see this will not work without having long haul, without having all the segments, without having buses, trucks, and all the different categories then included. And therefore, we see now that the development we need must be faster, not from the development of the product, but from the development of the charging infrastructure, of the, let's say, the guidelines, the guardrails we need from politics, to also give our customers a clear picture of their business case. Yeah, they have, when they invest now, they might get the truck then, when they buy now, they get it in the next year. So they have to plan for 5 years ahead, or 6 years ahead, and they have to have stable conditions. And yeah, when we see that now it's not fully clear what happens next year to the toll fee in Germany, for example, if this is about zero-emission vehicles. So at the moment, it's planned that it goes down to up to 25% of the 100, and right now it's 0. So we have to keep that on a 0 level. That is one of our biggest expectations here for the politicians.
Regulatory certainty, that's what I'm hearing, is a big requirement.
Exactly.
For companies to meet these ambitious targets. I'm sure that Sita has some thoughts on this, but I do want to bring Caroline into the discussion first. Caroline, you've been working on something really important and quite new. It's a public tender, the first public tender, right? To build out charging infrastructure for electric heavy-duty vehicles in Germany. It's something we've read with great interest. There's lots of interesting features in there that will help, hopefully, the uptake of electric trucks. And I'm really glad that on this panel we actually have the supply perspective, the policy perspective, and the infrastructure perspective, because we need all three, really, to make heavy-duty electrification happen. So from the charging infrastructure point of view, can you tell us a bit more about what your plans are about this tender, and why is it designed the way it is, and how it's going to help accelerate electric truck charging?
Yeah, it's a lot of questions, and especially speaking of the tender design, that I can fill an evening, so I try to cut it short and brief. I think the most important thing about this tender is that its premise is a concept for heavy-duty public charging for 350 sites all across Germany, paying regards to that Germany is right in the middle of Europe, and we have a lot of heavy-duty vehicles for long-distance hauls coming from different countries as well. So we really wanted not only to provide or support the key lanes or key motorways with sites, but really like the whole country in general. And to do that, we first looked at the need that actually is there. And for that, we really had a great database for the Mautdaten. As we just heard, the data is considered there. So we had an idea of where trucks are heading, where they're stopping, and what the need for or charging need would be with a target at 2030. So that's where we started. Then our planners looked for sites that were available, especially because, as you all know, areas and sites are very rare to get and to acquire. We tried to use that are already in the federal acquisition. So that's where we started, and from this 350 sites, we are now putting up for tender 130. So that's like the first round of tender for public infrastructure. We started. For the rest, it's a bit tricky because we still have a legal procedure in Brussels, so that's a whole different story. But I think it's a great start. It's brand new, and I think what's most impressive about it is that we not only included CCS but also megawatt charging, which were the to be honest, to design a tender including a charging system, megawatt charging system that is not in practice yet, was quite difficult to do, but we managed to find a way. And I think the other main thing that stands out besides that is that we included another option of paying to keep the prices as fair as possible, also on the motorways, because we know that the transport branch is very reliable of charging prices that are affordable, and so we offer. It's something that we haven't seen yet in tenders in general. So we offer together with the ad hoc and the EMP charging that we already know from our private car charging, also something that is so-called bring your own power or bring your own contract. In German, it's Durchleitungsmodell, very unsexy, but one or two have heard of that. And yeah, was not easy, especially when we have the Federal Ministry of Transport and Digitalization with us in this conception for the tender. It was also public, politician-wise, not easy to go for this option, but I'm very, very glad that we have included it, because I think that's, for the end users, the best option so far.
Right, so there's a lot in here to unpack. It's great to have your quite applied perspective on all those steps that need to happen to build that charging infrastructure, in particular megawatt charging, which technically is just about to be finalized as standard and then can be applied. Before we go into...
But I just... We've been to, because Emma is here on the panel, we've been to the first, I think, megawatt charging station release in Munich. We've been invited for that, I think, in May, or when was it? So it was like just this year, yeah.
It's all brand new, and I can see that you've really tried to prepare the future with this tender. Klaus, do you want to react to this?
Maybe let me add to that. Yeah, thank you very much for bringing it up. I didn't mention that, but of course, this is in the end then so important. We can do already now MCS charging with 750 kilowatts, but megawatt is to come in the technology, and we already had the first test now, and it's working. So that means in the end you can charge fully a long-haul truck in around, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. which already comes close to the time you need for fueling the diesel. And then you have a range of 600 kilometers. Yeah? So, I mean, this is already clear that with that technology, it works to have a long-haul business case. Yeah? But we need enough of these chargers. And we need the grid for that in the end, you know.
I think we're aligned on the grid and the need for charging infrastructure. Maybe just to add a little bit of perspective in how we see this globally, really scaling up. So a large chunk of the charging for the next couple of years will be done at the depots. We see a really good use case for cost parity with diesel already happening now or between now and 2030 of vehicles, you know, returning to base the same day and charging at the depot. So that is somewhere where we can already reach scale. Also in Poland, I would like to express. So I think it's really important to electrify the use cases that are easiest first. And it's important to start thinking about the long haul. So we see great examples like Germany. I'd like to stress a different example that is from Denmark. So what they did is they did a similar analysis, but then they asked the market, which of these identified areas is there already private capital going into, right? Because it's this new situation where we are public-private. What is the role of government and when is it the role of industry to step in? So their approach was to request information from the market players and say, where are you already investing? We will not put public money in those locations because that's already happening by itself, which actually helps the market to become more mature quicker, because then government money can go into those locations that are harder to electrify. So that really creates this blanket certainty, which obviously manufacturers but also fleets need, that there will be availability of charging along the main routes and not just in specific segments. So these are two, I think, different but similar examples from Germany and Denmark, where we see governments stepping into the space, taking responsibility, but also looking for this kind of awkward or new position where you're very close to industry. So what is your role? When do you take it? And when do you let industry and the market do its work? But the use case is there. And I want to kind of highlight how important it is for the logistics sector, because this transition will happen quickly. Of course, it's the best if there's certainty on road pricing, subsidies, all of this. That's the ideal world I think we all want to go to. But even in the reality that we are uncertain, this transition will happen, and it will happen very, very quickly. So I think that's just something I really want to underline, because even though we don't see the trucks on the road every day yet, they will come and they will come quickly, if they're produced quickly, but I have confidence that they will.
Thank you, Sita, for providing this big picture context. Let me throw one general question back to all three of you. We know that these trucks will come sooner or later. We want them to be sooner, and we want to create, let's say, the best conditions in the infrastructure, in the supply, in the way we collaborate as different stakeholders. What are the main barriers that you see that need to be addressed next? Perhaps we can actually start with Klaus, and then we move back to me.
Yeah, let me just first comment one more time to that one, because it's so important. It absolutely agree to the situation that we have already, depot charging, business cases. We can do intermodal transport, container in the harbors. We do a lot in Netherlands also. We have some customers, Polish customers operating there. And so there is a business case. And as I said, for the buses, 1,000 buses are running completely electric. So this is fine. We continue doing that. Our main message is here just from the manufacturer side. When we target this 2030 target of minus 45%, yeah, we have to start ramp up the production, and we want to keep the target, which is minus 15% next year already. We need much more production of electric trucks, and we cannot do it with the possibilities we have now. So therefore, we are so pushy on this topic, really to think about that much more. Getting these stable conditions and planning stability then for the customers ahead. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. We're waiting for the subsidies to pass, right, in Poland. Yeah. I think we're all waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, it's subsidies, and it's of course also the framework. No? Let's say when we say the subsidies also for the purchasing is another topic. Now we have that in Poland as one planned budget. Yeah, right now, which has to be released. And at the moment, we have basically an order stop in Poland, so we can try to sell and to offer the units, but we cannot finally order them, because if they are ordered right now, they are not valid for any incentivization which might start in the next year. Yeah. And the other thing is the money which is parked or which is reserved for the infrastructure, which is also has to be done now, has to be realized. Without that, we will definitely not make it.
Other barriers that you want to bring up that need to be solved next?
Well, just to, in addition, and we already said it before, an obstacle, especially for the building up the public needed infrastructure, is grid connection. Especially in this dimension, as we need it for the charging system for heavy duties that we're trying to build up in Germany. This is, to give you an example, one charging site with a megawatt charging is equal to trying to connect a small town city to the grid. So that is the vast amount of energy we're talking about. So, and to guideline that, we decided that we order the grid connections, or the federal government of Germany is ordering the grid connections, and they are not part of the tender in general, because otherwise we needed to go through the whole procedure, and then whoever gets the bid would order the grid connection, and we just lose time. So time is of the essence, and we are starting out. We also are in dialogue with the grid industry to tell them what we're trying to do, and figure out ways to just get quicker, to be honest. It's not easy because there's a lot of demand on the grids when we are talking about transforming not only the mobility in the heavy duty sector, but also the energy sector in general. But yeah, I think that's the main obstacle when we're talking about infrastructure. And when we're talking about electrifying a fleet, I think MAN is more an expert as well, because my agency is not only doing the tenders, but also subsidies and fundings as well. We hear this a lot, that at least at this point where we are now, some fundings for electrifying depots, for example, and also to purchasing the trucks itself is needed as well. We hope it's planned in the budget for 2025 in Germany, so let's hope we get it. And then this is something also that needs to happen.
Maybe just to add to that, I think these are excellent points. On grid capacity, and linked to that is also the time it takes, both to upgrade the grid, but also sometimes the permitting process. So I live in Spain, and the permitting process in Spain for a grid upgrade, but even a charging infrastructure location, can be very insecure. Like you don't really, you know it's going to take long, but you don't even know how long. So again, certainty is needed for a business decision to be made. So these are things really where, again, this public-private collaboration is so important and so key. And it's an extra reason not to wait. We know it's going to take a while, at least the first coming years. We know it's going to take a while to upgrade the grid. You might have to wait. So if you already have a fleet or use cases, it's important to at least plan so that you know what is your request going to be, by when and to whom, and to already at least build those relationships that once the ecosystem is ready, you can move quickly, because you don't want to be putting up public charging infrastructure and then have no electric vehicles or trucks using them, right? So that's actually the topic of a panel that's on the other side after this one, which is demand aggregation, right? How do you make sure that if you do plan for infrastructure, that that infrastructure is being used, right? That there's trucks actually charging at those locations. So again, a public-private collaboration is needed there.
Oh, and I can add to that. When we define the demand for the charging sites, it's not only the data of the modes that we use, but we also did a very thorough market research and market clean room polls with OEMs and CPOs and so on and so on and so on to kind of predict of what is coming. And the sites for the public charging infrastructure is only covering this prognosed demand for 2030 by around 70%. So we need to have private investors also on the sites. And in Germany, the sites on the motorways are in public hands or in the hands of the federal state. So this is kind of why we chose to, or why one chose us to tender these off instead of just, hoping that the market will solve it, because they can't. Either you make a concession model or you tender. That's the only way to do it. But yeah, we are greatly relying on Milans and Co. to build up something on the sites as well, and to get a grip that is up to the demand that's hopefully coming. Yeah.
Klaus, you have a reaction?
I also add to that, bureaucratic hurdles, administration, time it takes, it's really a major topic as well. We have in Poland here, we have waiting times of 2 up to 3 years, partly. And you can imagine, then you cannot really plan ahead. And so therefore, I think this is a major topic as well. So absolutely agreed. And yeah, so I think to point that out again, I think it's a very good discussion, and thanks a lot for bringing all the topics up. We can just do it together. No? We can just look forward to the 2030 target and be much stronger here in creating solutions, fast solutions, and then we can make it.
The end.
I didn't want to
Thank you. We have
back to the moderator.
4 minutes left, and I'm just really happy that from a discussion for 100% electrification, how do we get there? We naturally get the main bottlenecks, sort of where we stand and that need to be solved, and grid integration, especially for electric heavy duty, is definitely one of them. I'd invite you to perhaps each think of a quick closing statement, because we do have time for that. But I just want to, sorry, I cannot resist to bring in a little bit of RAP's thinking here, because we really focus on where the electric vehicle meets the power grid. And our 2 sort of basic ingredients to solve that grid bottleneck that we have at the moment, and thanks for illustrating it with so many examples, are planning and pricing. Planning, sorting out the grid connections, the queues, but also requiring grid operators to provide the transparency we need to know what's actually going on the grids, so we can optimize the charging of all those fleets with really big batteries that we're going to see in the near future. Depot charging will be one of the most important use cases to basically help make electrification of electric heavy-duty vehicles as cost-efficient as we can get it. And we really need that, because cost-efficient means beneficial for the consumer, for the grid, and for the environment. That's what we mean when we talk about smart charging. So without saying it, I think we've also talked a lot about smart charging of EVs, and that's a topic very close to my heart and what we do at RAP. With this short intersection, I wanted to perhaps pass on the word back to you. You have a little under the minute. Is there any sort of closing statement, that any key message that you want to leave our audience with today on the topic of 100% heavy-duty electrification? How do we want to get there? Do I perhaps start with whoever wants to go first? Caroline, you did want to say something before.
Yeah,
Is that a good segue? I didn't want to.
It was meant more as an addition, but maybe it's also a good because it's an uplifting closing point.
Positive messages, please.
Yeah, at the end, because we were we were building up the charging infrastructure in the hope that there is a demand coming and electrification coming. and in the hope of the heavy-duty vehicle, where we see more leverage than in the private or in the private car sector, more leverage to really reduce CO2 emissions on the streets. So, and when we've been to the IAA Transport last week, which is a huge fair for the OEMs and the whole transport industry, we really met so many industries and market players from the transport section who said, we are ready to do this, and we are ready to invest without subsidies and so on, because, as you said, there is a business case. Please provide a basic infrastructure and be transparent, as you said. And we are therefore, and that was, at least for me, very uplifting to hear and motivates us to, go on and continue.
Thank you so much. 30 seconds for Klaus and Sita.
We're ready. Start now.
Maybe I use 44 seconds. No, just one thing, which is always, we talk about theory and what we need and so on. We should also really think about how cool it is to have a 40-ton truck, is moving away without any exhaust gas, without any noise, or almost no noise. This is just fantastic, And seeing that then, that it really happens. I mean, I come from a generation where this was not possible, and not at all thinkable. And this is great, and we have it. Yeah, and the efficiency is over 90%, getting the electric energy out of the battery. And this is double than the normal engine. I think this is great to have, and let's go that direction.
Can I add one more word?
Yes, you can.
How cool it is that we're all working in a space at this point in time where we can make this change.
Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect closing words. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for my fantastic panel. This was a really enjoyable and great discussion. Thank you so much. Thanks to the audience for listening to us. And please approach us with any questions or comments that you have from our discussion. Thank you so much.